Well, hello and welcome back, my friends, to week number 5 of the Nutritionist Life training series. Well. Welcome to my absolute favorite presentation. As many of you may know, this is one of my areas of expertise. This is a subject that I've studied personally for about 5 years in depth. I've followed various experts, such as Dr. Robert Lustig and Dr. Mark Hyman and others that specialize in this. And I've read countless journal articles and books that have really illuminated for me what is going on in this country. And this is something I'm extremely passionate about. And I hope by the end of this presentation that you will feel some of that passion in your own self, that you will feel a change in perspective. I hope you'll be able to see the world in which you live a little bit differently, especially as you go about your daily business and you start to understand that we are completely enshrined, shrouded, and encapsulated by sugar. Now, let me just hurry and process some information for you, and yes, it is pun intended, because we're also going to be including processed foods. Processed foods are oftentimes synonymous with sugar, and we're going to talk about both of these as though they are one, and I'm going to explain why here in just a moment. So let's look at how we, and when I say we, how we collectively as a society view sugar. What is it that we see and what we experience when we view sugar? Well, first of all, we equate sugar as linked with weight gain, but otherwise harmless. If you talk to the average person, the extent of their knowledge, and again, this is not as a slam, I'm not offering this as being impugning or trying to slam anybody, but if you talk to the average person, they will conceptualize sugar as bad, per se, because it leads to weight gain. But very few times will you actually talk to somebody that knows why it is so bad. Okay, so this is a deception, or I'm sorry, a perception that has come from ignorance. And I'm going to show you why that is a perception of ignorance. Okay, so there's no better weapon in our arsenal against the battle of sugar and processed foods than that of education. We do not view sugar as a truly addictive substance. The average person, especially here in Utah, and I have you know that Utah is the #1 state in the nation for sugar consumption, and there's various reasons for that. We do not view sugar as a truly addictive substance, which indeed it is. That's how we view it. Furthermore, we feel entitled to sugar. Now, this makes me laugh because there's been so many times where I've sat down with a client in a nutritional coaching situation, and we're talking about processed food or sugar, and it's as though there is a personal offense given to the client when I ask them to start to cut down their sugar intake. I think they know it consciously, oftentimes they do, but there's this inner entitlement to sugar, and there's a reason for that. And we're going to talk about that reason. The reason is because sugar is the norm. It's our norm, and it's a subconscious entitlement. We feel we work hard, we're stressed, we like something sweet, we deserve it. So there is a certain level of entitlement which drives our behavior. Now, this mindset of entitlement is the problem. The mindset of linking sugar to nothing more than simple weight gain that needs to be burned off after the holidays, and viewing sugar as not addictive. This collective mindset is the problem. This is why we persist in our ways. Now, again, remember, let me just be very forthright in telling you, again, I am a big supporter of the 80-20 rule. I will tell you straight up I dig sugar. I am a sweet tooth. I always have been. You can talk to my parents, you can talk to my family. I love sugar. On my cheat meal, I prefer to have something sweet, and boy, do I. I usually have a big old whopping bowl of ice cream or brownie, but mind you, that's once a week. It's the way I choose to do it. For my 80/20, I choose one day of the week. Well, it's one meal of the week where I tend to just do my thing. Okay? So I'm not coming to you as this pious beacon of righteousness. I am coming to you in the realm of a teacher and offering you an insight and telling you that this mindset is indeed the problem. Now, with this mindset, I'm going to show you something right here, this stat on the bottom of your screen. The reason it's the problem is because it is contributing to our behavior, which is synonymous with 150 pounds of sugar per year per person. Now, this is absolutely embarrassing. Now, that's a lot of sugar, and we just don't think of it this way. Okay, but this is contributing to all sorts of disease, as you may very well know, or maybe you don't. And hopefully you can gain that enlightenment today. With this, what I've called a sugared mindset, you have to ask yourself, how did we get here? How did we get to this point with our sugar addiction where we're consuming 150 pounds per year, where we're feeling entitled, where we get addicted to it at a biochemical level? How did we get here? And the answer is, just like my picture suggests, is we are programmed. We have a sugared mindset. We are programmed to behave in a certain way. Here's a startling fact. In our country, in the good old US of A right now, sugar is the norm. It is the norm. And we can't escape this fact. Now, this was not the norm even 100 years ago. It was more the exception. Now it is the norm. Now, how did it become the norm? How did we begin to just feel like this is just part of who we are? This is how we operate? If you don't believe this, by the way, go to your local grocery store and walk down the aisles and tell me what you see. What you're going to see is processed foods and sugar. Okay? Sugar is the norm for a few reasons. First and foremost is societal pressure. Now, believe me when I tell you this, I have spent a lot of time in research finding the root cause of why we are addicted and why this has become the norm. Now, you can trace this back even into hundreds of years ago, where sugar was only available to the class of royalty. Literally, peasants did not have sugar, but as it became more bountiful and plentiful up to the late 1970s, where high fructose corn syrup came into play, you will find that it progressively, through history, has become our norm. Now that it is ubiquitous and everywhere in our society, we find that there is a high degree of societal pressure that goes along with sugar. Sugar is the norm. There is a high degree of societal pressure. Now, let me talk to you about what I mean by that. If you live in a society, we have a natural, innate human desire to feel normal. In the East, they would define this as your root chakra. And we would say that we all want to have family or tribe or tribal association. It's a security and a survival mechanism built into our human psyche. Now, if we are part of society and society is touting sugar as the norm, then there is an external and an internal impetus of pressure to conform. Let me give you an example. How many times have you been with a boss or a colleague or a family party and you feel pressure to conform to what everybody else is having or eating or saying or doing? There is societal pressure to be normal. And that's built into your DNA. Okay? Now, this is a problem. What about the marketing of food? Can you get on your computer? Can you drive down the freeway? Can you even sit peacefully in your living room without having Girl Scout cookies? Now, I love Girl Scout cookies, but you can't even go there and escape processed sugar-filled foods. See, there is marketing of food everywhere. If you look into corporations, you'll find that there is nary a dollar that is allocated for the marketing of healthy foods. It's all marketed for unhealthy processed foods, sugary foods. Why? Because it sells. Follow the money. People know, corporations know, food giants know that they can addict you to sugar. And if you don't believe me on this, there is a great book written about it called Beating the Food Giants. I can't remember the name of the author off the top of my head, but it's called Beating the Food Giants, and it will show you exactly the science of marketing of food. And it starts at a very early age. The average kid is exposed to I won't quote the number because I can't remember it off the top of my head, but they are exposed to a huge amount of commercials of fast food and processed food. By the time they're 15, it was in the 10,000s. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's substantial. Now, sugar is the norm because of our family and our upbringing. Think of it. Thanksgiving dinner. You've got all the nice feast, and there's nothing wrong with Thanksgiving dinner. I'm not trying to take that away. I'm just saying that there is an element of your familial upbringing that lends itself to sugar being the norm, to processed foods being your norm. We tend to associate good times with food. That's just a simple fact. That's a psychological fact. And when we associate good times with food, we start to program our mind. This lends itself to the sugared mindset, as we are indicating. So, knowing this, we look retrospectively into our upbringing. We start to, if we're honest with ourselves, we start to see that food was at the soccer game. Food was at the religious event. Food was at our birthday party. We're talking processed food, sugary food. Sugary processed food was at our graduation, when we got married. I mean, it's everywhere. This is our culture. You don't see this in other cultures. You go to the Far East, you're not going to see any of this. Okay, this is what we live in. Now, you hear me getting a little emphatic about this because this has severe repercussions. This is why 90% of the people walk through Lifelong Fitness door and want some help, because of what this norm has done to their body. Okay, so it's something that we need to take very seriously, and we need to address it as a society and individually. Friends, peers, and coworkers, right? We like to, again, going back to, we like family, we like tribe, we like to feel normal. I work in corporate America 5 days out of my week as a corporate wellness coach, and I see that it's the norm here. When people get stressed, they go to it. They have a work break with their friends, their coworkers, their peers, and what are they having? You guessed it. What about religious values? Now, why would I put that on a presentation like that? Like this, is this appropriate to put on here? And the answer in my mind is an emphatic yes. And here's why. Many religions, regardless, teach a lot of ethical codes, moral codes, and so forth. We know this. Some of them even teach a code of health. Many of them do. There is some taboo foods that are restricted or frowned upon by religious organizations. In the East, sometimes there's meat or pork. There's kosher Jewish foods. In our Utah culture, we have things like alcohol that are frowned upon by a lot. Now, it's interesting. I'm not saying this is good, bad, or indifferent. You make your own moral judgments on that. I'm not here to tell you any of that. But what I am here to tell you is it's ironic that you don't find sugar or processed food with any of that. So what does this say to our subconscious mind? This tells us, subconsciously, it feeds into the program. And by the way, your subconscious mind is responsible for 96 to 98% of your behavior. Okay? Fathom what I just told you. That means my subconscious mind is driving 96 to 98% of my behavior, including what I eat, what I say, how I treat people, the tone of my voice, how I walk, my perceptions of life, my ambitions, everything, unless I bring conscious awareness to it. If this is how we're programmed, in our upbringing we are heavily influenced by our religion, which is fine, isn't it interesting that we're being taught subconsciously that sugar's just fine? Processed foods is just fine. I've gone to countless religious events as a guest speaker for various denominations, and it's interesting that in each one of them, you've got processed sugary foods. None of this is frowned upon, right? It's part of the norm. So if it's okay in God's eyes, it's okay for us. Again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anybody. I'm just trying to have us look, a closer look at what we're consuming and why. Now, what about events, soccer games, any kind of event, political, religious, sporting event, family event, birthdays? All these events have with them sugar, refreshments. We even make names for it, refreshment. There's no such thing as, what are you getting refreshed from? Nothing refreshes you, and it's processed or sugary, right? That's just my own little side note, bear with me. But my point is that you can't go anywhere with a special event. I have clients all the time that their food logs get disrupted. And they say, well, I had this event, I had that event, I had this event. The fact of the matter is that these events are loaded with sugar. Now, last is sugar is an accepted form of a stress reliever. Okay, what do you go to when you go for stress? You don't raid the fridge and go, oh, where's that celery? I'm so stressed. Oh, where's the arugula? You ever done that? I don't think so. You go for the Coke. You go for the Twizzlers. You go for the TV dinner. You do something that's processed and quick that gives you a surge of energy. There's a physiological reason you do that, but it's a conditioned response that has dire health consequences to it over time. The bottom line is this: we are conditioned subconsciously to eat sugar. And the faster we get out of denial and accept this truth, the faster we can begin to change our habits. Now let's look at the relationship of sugar and processed foods. I'm not going to take too much time in here because it's a pretty simple point, but let's talk briefly. Sugar and processed foods, as I mentioned, are often synonymous. Okay? Processed carbohydrates, white flour, break down into blood sugar rapidly. Let me give you a perfect example. Take a bagel. You could go get a bagel from Einstein's Bagels, and technically you're going to have probably 1 gram or less of sugar. So I have a lot of clients that say, well, Griff, it's sugar-free. There's no sugar in it. Well, that's true, but the problem is, just because there's no sugar doesn't mean it doesn't break down to sugar rapidly, and that is what you need to be aware of. If it has a high glycemic index, which we've already talked about, it's going to cause a rapid rise in your blood sugar. When that happens, you get a rapid rise in insulin. When that happens, you have a fat storage mechanism. When that happens over time, you've got disease. You've got type 2 diabetes. You've got metabolic disease. Nothing that we are rushing to obtain. Okay? So even if that processed food has 0 grams of sugar, doesn't mean that it doesn't have that same effect. You gotta trace it. What is it doing in your body? Remember, the higher your insulin goes, the worse it is for you. Now, both of these, sugar and processed food, lead to weight gain and disease. Now, I will say there is a little bit of a physiological metabolic difference between sucrose, which is refined sugar, and a high glycemic food like a bagel, which is pure glucose. In fairness, there is a difference, and sugar is more harmful, but not much. These refined carbohydrates will have a disastrous effect as well, so we need to be aware. So the question here, this is in your binder, your manual, is, or are you rather, riding the deadly blood sugar wave? Now, look at these scenarios. I've got a muscle building wave, an ideal wave, and a weight gain wave. Now, look at my little quote to the right. Eating sugary and processed foods create, now get this, create a hormonal environment that is conducive to weight gain and disease. Now, hormonal environment. Now, you've got 3 primary hormones in your body, one of which is insulin. This graph to your left is showing you what, or this illustration rather, is showing you what happens when your insulin hormone gets tipped out of homeostasis. Now, notice, I'm going to bring my mouse into play here. You're going to notice right here, this is your homeostatic line. This is where you want your baseline. This is ideal, okay? Now, with the muscle builder, you get these muscle heads like bodybuilders and so forth that cram a bunch of rice and bread and sweet potatoes and all sorts of carbohydrates to jack their insulin up. And why do they do that? Because they are trying to promote the inclusion of amino acids into their muscle, the synthesis of amino acids into their muscle tissues. Now, there is a science behind that. And so a bodybuilder would look like this. Here's my eggs and my sweet potato. Then it comes down a little bit. Oh, now I'm going to have some rice, and I'm going to cram it up there. Now I'm going to have some beans and some bread, and I really ride it up there a little bit above baseline. Okay, so they are riding this wave intentionally to build muscle, right? There is specific applications that you can use insulin to your advantage from an anabolic or muscle building application. Now, in fairness, 90% of you and more listening to this presentation are not in this muscle building scenario. You might want to gain a little bit of muscle, but you're not worried about competing or gawking at yourself every 5 minutes in the mirror, right? At least I hope you're not. Okay, so what most of us do, I'm going to jump down here where it says weight gain. Most Americans are riding this weight gain wave. Now remember, here's your normal baseline of blood sugar. And it is only when blood sugar rises above that baseline that you're going to start to gain weight. Okay? So let me give, here's a typical American. I don't have breakfast right here, so I'm way down here. Then it gets to about 10 a.m. You'll see right here, 10 a.m. I get hungry, so I go get some coffee and a bagel, white. I throw some sugar in my coffee, and what do I get? I get this big spike of insulin. Whew, that felt good. Ooh, but what goes up must come down. Here I come. Woo! I'm coming down, and I start to hit this valley. Well, I don't feel good right here. I feel irritable. I feel cranky. I'm starting to snap at coworkers. So what do? Well, it's almost lunchtime. Okay, well, I get to Rumby Grill, and at Rumby Grill, I get the white rice bowl. Okay. And I get that sucker because I'm really hungry. I'm kind of malnourished at this point, so I really jacked that up. Could have done brown rice, which would have given me a lower glycemic load, but I chose the white, refined, processed carbohydrate that shot me up here, which really brings me down again below baseline. So this is a whole pattern of hyper right here versus hypoglycemia. Hyper, hypo, hyper, hypo. Now, I work. I get home for dinner and I have a big dinner. I might have some tortillas, have some chips and salsa to start off, and maybe you find that dinner is pasta. You got spaghetti, but again, it's processed, it's white. So my blood sugar goes up. Now notice here, around 10 o'clock, I'm going to bed, hopefully. Most people aren't, but their blood sugar is still high. So if they're winding down, if your activity is winding down around 10 p.m. and your insulin is still high, I got a question for you. What is that insulin doing with your blood sugar? And the answer is that insulin is storing your blood sugar in your body, which leads, as this little column indicates, to weight gain. This is where the average American lives. And then they get to the end of the year, like I said in presentation number 2, and they say, well, how did I gain 5 pounds over the year? I don't get it. Okay? This is how. When you're high beyond your blood sugar baseline, your body is practically forced to gain weight. So, are you riding the deadly blood sugar wave? I've often talked about the 80-20 rule of blood sugar handling. Here's what I mean by this. Let's look at 3 different scenarios here. If I am living a true, follow my mouse down here, true 80-20, meaning I'm eating primarily veggies, fruit, and natural low glycemic carbohydrates. Now remember, we're just talking about carbohydrates right here, but I'm talking about, let's go beyond that, natural protein, natural fats, natural food, 80% of the time. This is, and now obviously this is a little bit exaggerated, but it lends itself to a lean muscular physique, male or female. This is how the human body is designed, given some adequate exercise. This is where we should be. Living 80-20. That means 20% of the time you go to your family party, you have the dessert. You go to your holiday party, you indulge, you have a little bit of an ice cream. If you're a coffee drinker, you can put a little sugar in there every once in a while, right? If it's truly 80-20, if the rest of your day, let's go with the coffee example. You had coffee, you put a little bit of sugar in there. The rest of your day, you had good, wholesome foods. Well, guess what? You're going to be okay because you have the nutrition on board. Now, let's look at this one, medium. If you consume 10% of the time, you got it right in between. If you have healthy choices in this range, be sure to combine them with low glycemic veggies and protein, right? So we're talking about the glycemic index here. What this one is talking about is if you are going to have a treat, combine them, like we talked about before, with a low glycemic vegetable and a protein, which often carries a healthy fat, okay? Now, 10% of the time, this is your treat category, right? This is your medium glycemic index. So low glycemic index, medium glycemic index, high glycemic index. The 80-20 rule of the glycemic index says if you're going to have your treat, make sure this is about 10%. Which, and if it was, if you had a medium glycemic index, some of these processed foods, such as like a white pasta, would fall right into this medium. By the time you're done, between your 10 and your 10, you got your 20 rule, and you got 80% of the time eating good and healthy. Now, if this is implemented day after day, you truly will live 80-20. You can have your dessert. Just make sure you moderate the portion. Now, notice this. This is the average American eats about 20-80, and that leads to these kinds of physiques, right? Where it starts to add body fat. The old axiom, you are what you eat, could not be more true. You are what your hormones dictate. What is your insulin doing? There's all sorts of other hormones, but we're just going to stick to the basics for now, okay? So, this is how you handle your blood sugar. We've talked about the glycemic index. We've talked about, let's just expand this to processed foods and sugars. 80% of the time, to wrap this slide up, eat wholesome, natural, low glycemic food. 10% of the time, if you have a moderate glycemic food, combine it with a veggie and a protein. It's going to bring it down. If you want to have a treat 10% of the time, have that too. Okay? It's how we're designed to eat. Now, this is a concept that I've come up with because I found that it really helps clients understand the spectrum of processed foods. Now, when you hear the word when you hear the word processed foods, just understand that the word processed food, or the refinement processing of foods, puts them on a spectrum. In other words, think of it. If you go outside and you go to your garden, or if you were more exotic, you went to a rainforest, or you go to the jungle, or an orchard, or any place that food is produced naturally through the earth, or through a creature roaming on the earth, such as an animal. That is a natural food. It came from nature. And I call this up here, you see my mouse, food heaven. These are your fruits, vegetables, field whole grains, and natural, unprocessed foods. Now, You want to choose foods that are minimally processed. Now, when you say minimally processed, what you're saying is that you are not adding, now get this, or subtracting from the food. Now, bread is processed just by slicing it. You could have a whole grain bread where you haven't taken anything out of the grain and you haven't added anything, so it's 100% natural, but it's processed a little bit by virtue of slicing it. Now, nobody would tell you that you can't have that every once in a while, okay? Unless you're gluten intolerant, and there's plenty of applications where gluten can be a problem, but we're not going there right now, okay? But in this example, since we're in Nutrition 101 here, it would be wise to get foods, to consume foods from food heaven that are unprocessed. Now, we come down this spectrum a little bit. This is where like a whole wheat boxed crackers or a whole wheat bread, why are those more processed? Well, a whole grain still has all three parts of the grain intact. A whole wheat has milled it and sifted it and broken down the fibers a little bit more. The bran portion of the whole grain's been broken down. You know, I have them there like a string cheese. It's been pasteurized. These are foods that have an element of processing to them. Okay, so it brings it down. You come down even further. Now you got like wheat bread. So it's not whole wheat bread. It's now they've taken something out of it, and most likely they've added something. They've probably enriched it with vitamins and minerals, and they've taken some things out, added it back in. This is what happens when you really get into food processing. It's about addition and subtraction. Why do you need to add something to a whole food? You don't, because the food is in its whole form. You're up here in nutrition heaven. Down here, you have need to add it back in, like a prepackaged deli meat and carbohydrates that have been processed. They have the need. They're actually FDA mandated to add vitamins and minerals back in because they've been taken out. You always have to ask yourself, if the food is whole, why would it need to be added in? Why would vitamins need to be added in? Why would minerals and antioxidants need to be added back in? And the question is because they've been taken out. Down here in Nutrition Hell, you've got white bread, pasta, cereal, most cereal, soda, juice, candy, TV dinners, crackers, canned foods. All of these things are quick, convenient. They typically have very long shelf lives to them. They typically have very long labels that are laborious, and you pretty much have to have a PhD in chemistry to understand the darn things. You're talking words that makes your tongue do gymnastics. You have to sit there and with a magnifying glass and try to break it down like Sherlock Holmes just to pronounce it. Okay, this is really interesting because nature, how hard is it to say chicken? How hard is it to say, now I'm talking of a raw source, like milk or apple, carrot. Anybody can say that. But to say denosonil 90D fluctuation, red 540, I just strung that together, can you tell? But to say that, or something even more complicated, benzene terahexylene. I mean, what is that? That is not what your body's made to have, and that's why it's in nutrition hell. And by the way, it wreaks havoc on your body because your liver has to detox all of it, and that's why it's down with our little devil friend in nutrition hell. So the closer to nature, the better. Think of it this way. When I'm speaking to an audience, I say, when is the last time you went outside to your garden after a hard day's work, and because you deserved it, you went and picked a Dorito off of your Dorito plant? Seems kind of silly, doesn't it? Because it doesn't exist in nature. The only reason that Doritos exist is because we've processed them from 25 ways to Sunday. Now, again, I won't go into why that's bad. I think you understand that by now. So always ask the question, just to recap, what is added and what is subtracted from the food? Look at the label, and the larger it is, the worse it is. Okay. Let's look at sugar addiction and address this very quickly. I can tell you that with my research and with practical application, with no hesitation, sugar addiction is real. It is very real. It is scientifically proven to be real. Many experts consider it to be a class 1 drug. And we're not talking about like a rent-a-scientist expert. We're talking about leading researchers in Yale and Harvard that have, and Dr. Robert Lustig, that have classified this as a class 1 drug. That's pretty serious. That is in the realm of any hardcore drug that you can think of that keeps you addicted. Why? Because this substance, sugar, produces chemical and hormonal imbalance similar to drugs and alcohol. I'm not going to go into the deep physiology of this, but in short, what it does is it alters the neurotransmitters in your brain, not the least of which is a little place in your brain called your nucleus accumbens, which is responsible for secreting dopamine, which interacts with serotonin and norepinephrine, which regulates your well-being. Now, you do not want to mess with those suckers. In Utah, we have a high degree of sugar intake. We also have a very high rate of depression because we consume a lot of sugar. Now, there is chemical reasons for this that if you follow it, it makes perfect sense as to why we, being the highest state for sugar consumption, are also one of the highest states for being depressed. So why is it? Well, focus and follow the chemical and hormonal imbalances and you will find your answer. I know that sounds a little scary, guys, and in all likelihood it should be, because if it wasn't, would we ever change our actions? And again, if you're living the 80-20 rule, you're not going to have to worry about these severe ramifications that we're talking about here. Now, I am just going to flash this up on the screen. I am not going to go through each one of these individually. This would take me an entirely long time, which I'm not going to. So if you want to do like a screenshot of these, go for it. This is some of the, I go into detail with these bullet points when I teach my Sugar Freedom course. So if you are interested, I will likely teach another class at the public level. But for now, there you go, one more time. Take a nice little screenshot of that. Here comes some more. Now, look at what's going on here, guys. I'm just pounding these consequences of sugar addiction. Look at that: blood pressure, altered moods, suppressed immune system function, increased cancer risk, gastrointestinal abnormalities, absorption deficiencies, autoimmune diseases such as arthritis, asthma, multiple sclerosis. Here's the point. Did we ever just look at this through our typical paradigm? Remember what I started the presentation with. We think that sugar is just associated with weight gain. These are scientifically proven byproducts and elements that are offshoots of excessive sugar addiction or intake, which leads to sugar addiction. This is not trivial stuff that we should just sneer at and say, well, it's too bad. This is stuff that we have to actually act on. And again, I'm sorry if I sound a little bit emphatic. I'm not meaning to sound condescending here. I'm very passionate about this. I do believe, and believe you me, if you control your sugar and your insulin, like I said before in the other presentation, you control in large part your health. I love this. You can never, ever out-train a poor diet. Don't you love that? I've actually seen that in person, believe it or not. In excess, sugar makes weight loss and true health a true impossibility. And that is an immortal truth. And perhaps the worst consequence of them all. Because how many of us really want to bust our butt at the gym and exert, spend some time, money, emotion on health and fitness and get nothing out of it because we can never out-train a poor diet? It is impossible. I tell people when they first call into Lifelong Fitness, if you think you can come in and do your crunches and out-train and just train so that you can eat what you want to, you've got another thing coming. And I hear that all the time, this fallacy. Well, I work out so that I can eat what I want. Trust me, there is not a bigger lie that circulates in nutritional circles and in workout circles than that one. I put this one up here to show you that sugar is everywhere. This is just a box of crackers. Look where sugar is. Everything that's highlighted is a form of sugar. By the way, even beyond that, you've got like maltodextrin, tapioca dextrin. These are all forms of sugar or carbohydrates that are rapidly digested. This is a glut of sugar. Now, the point of this slide is that when you are eating processed foods, what you're looking at, what you're feasting your eyes on right now becomes the norm. This is not abnormal. This is what we eat. This is what we feed ourselves. And this is particularly what we feed our children. Now, that is another topic that I'm extremely passionate about, because that's where our children are learning their eating habits. And sadly, we live in a country where what's good for the goose is not good for the gander. If we want to get healthy, see this all the time, parents want to come in and get healthy and fit, but they've got, and this is not to judge anybody, please don't misunderstand. I'm not trying to be insensitive, but I think that we're sending a dualistic message if we're trying to eat well, we're watching our foods, but they're parading around with a bag of Cheetos and some Hi-C and goldfish as their standard of living and Lunchables. This is all processed food. What you're looking at your computer screen right now is what they're having, if that is their norm. And trust me, this is not a good way to get them physiologically stable. And if you think just for a minute that what they eat has nothing to do with their development psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, and so forth, I hate to tell you, but you're wrong. It has everything to do with it. You can't compartmentalize. This is everywhere, and you have to understand that you are truly what you eat. You are what you eat emotionally, you are what you eat spiritually, and so forth and so on. In 3 years of holistic schooling, that is the take-home message, is that you cannot separate or demarcate areas of living. Oh, well, they're young, they're eating good foods, or I'm seem to be doing okay. I've got a fast metabolism. If you're putting this in your body and you're living 20-80 rather than 80-20, there's going to be ramifications on all levels. It's just the truth. Now, these are little known sources of sugar. Again, these are just for your information. Isn't this crazy? Here's the point I want to make with this. Food manufacturers are very smart. They know that the public is becoming more savvy about sugar consumption. So do you think that they want to put the word sugar all over their label? Of course not. But if they can put something like, well, we've got dextron in there. Nobody looks at dextron and says, well, that's bad. Or ethyl maltitol, or free-flowing. I mean, people look at free-flowing and they're like, oh, yeah, free-flowing food, great, man. No, this is a sugar that's been added into your food. Okay, so here's some more. Screen capture all of these if you'd like. Take a look at them, and they're going to be in your diet if you're eating processed food. And there's the last list of them. Now, let's look at how much is too much. The World Health Organization has stated that no more than 5% of total daily calories should come from sugar. The average American consumes 13. Little bit of a discrepancy there. Kids and teenagers are 16% and above. You can obviously see we have our homework. So let's look at how to wean off the poison. And it is a poison. You want to begin by increasing your awareness. And you increase your awareness by tracking your food for your trainer and your coach. So you want to get a baseline of where you're at. You need to become aware of how many grams of sugar you're taking in per day. Now, be honest with yourself and track so that we can help. Don't try to dilute or pull a fast one, because we're going to know anyway. I mean, we've got a lot of experience in this field. I can almost guarantee it's going to be hard to pull the wool over our eyes. So don't sugarcoat your sugar consumption, all right? So typical weaning scale. Here's a case study. John eats 150 grams of sugar per day. Goal, you want to live the 80-20 rule by gradually getting down to 40 grams per day. So set your goal with your trainer, and here's what it would look like. Week 1. Now look how doable, when I progress these slides, look how doable these are. If you're living the 80-20 rule and you got this 150 gram goal, you want to get down to 40 grams per day, look how easy this is. 145, can you take 5 grams off? That's literally a Hershey Kiss. That's just saying you can't have one Hershey Kiss. You can have up to 145 grams of sugar, but you can't have that one Hershey Kiss. That's doable. That's not us yanking, just like I just yanked my microphone off, excuse me. That is not yanking your entire sugar intake away in one day. That is gradually, progressively taking it out. Now it's very doable. What about week 2, 140 grams? Week 3, 135. Now look at week 4, there's a little jump. Why do you think that is? Well, in 3 weeks' time, if you've taken literally 15 grams out of your diet, you're feeling pretty good about yourself. Your confidence is soaring. You might think, well, that's not a lot of sugar, but that is a big accomplishment, and you're feeling better. So now your confidence grows. It goes, you know what? I'm going to go 15 grams. Watch this, baby. Boom. And now you're at 120 grams, right? Because you're confident. Week 5, 110. Take another 10. Week 6, look how you're rolling now. Now you're feeling confident. Now you're starting to get a new lifestyle. Week 7, 80 grams. You take 20 off. Week 8, 70. Week 9, 50. And week 10, you're at 40 grams. I'm here to tell you, my friend, it is very doable. It takes 2 things. It takes 1, a willingness, and it takes confidence in yourself, and it takes doing. You have to be very conscious and aware. You have to track your food. You have to know where you're at with perfect honesty. Okay, so wean yourself off the poison. I can guarantee you when you do, you're going to feel a heck of a lot better. It's so awesome when clients wean themselves off of sugar. When I teach these sugar freedom seminars, whether it be to a private audience or to a corporate audience, it's interesting because I often get people about 6 weeks into the weaning schedule. They come up and they're like, Graf, man, thank you so much. I can't even believe that I lived that way with that much sugar for 30 plus years. I feel amazing. I feel so much better. And I thought that I was just living normal. I thought that my energy level was normal. Now I've got like 3 times the energy. I feel great. I can't tell you how many times I get that. Why? Because the body's coming back to physiological baseline. It's called homeostasis, baby, and that's where you feel good. So it's time to take action. Here's your homework assignment. I want you to continue to track your food on myfitnesspal.com so that your coach can see your sugar baseline, just as we just discussed. Set a sugar cessation schedule with your trainer. Also, okay, get me on this one. Also set a processed food goal. If you're getting maybe 5 servings of processed food a day, next week maybe go for 4. Next week maybe go for 3. Maybe you set a goal maybe to have maybe 1 processed food per day, and that's how you're going to live your life. That's fine. That's 80-20, but be very intentional about it. So, no more than 1 processed food per day. Okay? That would be an example. That's what I'm going to do. That's where I'm going to live. Great. Okay, so this is your action assignment. Thank you so very much for being here. I know I got a little passionate on that one. I ranted and I raved. I get it. I'm sorry, but I'm not. I appreciate you being here and taking this journey, my friend. I hope that this Nutrition is Life series has made a positive impact in your life. That is my dream, that it does. I truly value you, and I value your health. And the reason I can say that with the utmost sincerity is because I really feel like my mission in life is to help people understand just how much they're missing out on by conforming to the norms of society. Now, I say that in a nutritional realm, the sugar norm that we just spoke of. Just think how much better your life can be once you start to make these simple little changes. And like I just showed you, that sugar cessation schedule is not that hard. Taking out the processed foods one at a time with the help of your coach is not that hard. Now, I'm not trying to diminish it and saying that it's not challenging. It can be, okay? But it's so well worth the effort. Why? One reason, because you're worth the effort. Your health is worth the effort. And the dividends that you receive through your small investment are exponential. That's a fact. Remember, my friends, never excuse away your inner greatness. And always remember, life is good.